The special meeting of the School Board of Charlotte County, Florida for Tuesday, September 22nd, 2009 will now come to order. Please join us and the food service workers as they help lead us through the pledge. Please, if you'd come up to the microphone and lead us in the pledge to our flag. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. Dr. Gaylor, are there any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda?
Just one, Madam Chairman. Addition F2I, Personnel Addendum Number 1.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we add the personnel addendum. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Next we have several reports. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The first of these is our Elementary Literacy Leader of the Year, who is Principal Carmel Kissiday from Sally Jones Elementary School. I'd like to ask Kathy Hoff, who is our Director of Elementary Learning, to come to the podium and introduce Carmel and this fine recognition. Kathy.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Gaylor, and Ms. Young. It's with great pride tonight and pleasure that I introduce to you Ms. Carmel Kissiday, who you all know, principal at Sally Jones Elementary. Carmel was nominated for the district as our Just Read Florida Reading Literacy Leader of the Year for 2009. The nominees were put through quite an application process, and they were evaluated on the following 9 criteria. The first one is demonstrates a superior ability to foster excellence in literacy and contributes to the continuous improvement of student learning, professional development, and the school environment. Displays expertise in literacy and actively participates in continued professional development. Maintains a record of superior administrative performance as evidenced by data-driven student gains. Demonstrates leadership in educational activities at the school. Displays exemplary interpersonal skills in communicating with teachers, students, and parents. Utilizes innovative research techniques to enhance the quality of literacy instruction. Engages parents in the learning process to enhance student achievement. Demonstrates a strong commitment to creating a climate of caring and respect conducive to effective teaching and learning. And finally, evidences dedication to her community through active participation in service-oriented projects. I'd like to add that I've known Carmel for many years, first as a teacher many years ago when Dr. Harris used to be here. We were engaged in staff development together. I've also seen her come from teacher to assistant principal to principal. I can only say that Carmel exemplifies all of the 9 criteria that were mentioned above and more. She continually strives to bring new and innovative research-based reading strategies and programs to Sally Jones Elementary in the 10 years that she has been there. She is a continual learner herself, and she models every day for her faculty and staff members what she truly believes in. Once the district submitted the application, and after there was a lengthy telephone interview with Carmel in which they asked several rigorous questions, the state finally selected a regional finalist for this prestigious award in Elementary Reading Leader of the Year. So today, it's an honor for me to present Carmel Kissiday with a certificate from the state and with a plaque that myself and her principals have gotten for her. So Carmel, please come forward, and congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Kissiday. What an honor you bring to our district and to your school. Thank you very much. Dr. Gaylor.
Better husband.
I'm sorry, you have to remind me.
Thank you. Thank you.
That would have been a mistake.
Annual School Health Service Report, Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'd like to call Gail Buck, who's our Supervisor of District Health Services, to the podium to give you our annual School Health Services Report. Briefly, Gail.
Madam Chairman, school board members, Dr. Gaylor, Ms. Young, it's my pleasure this evening to share a snippet of what happened during our school year 2008-2009. The School Health Services Act of 1974 assigns the responsibilities for student health services to both the Department of Health and the local school districts. The Charlotte County Health Department and Charlotte County Public Schools work together to provide the most efficient and effective health care for students of Charlotte County possible. The primary mission of the Charlotte County Public School nurse is to promote and enhance the educational process for children and youth by assisting them to improve or to adapt to their health status. The main focus of every school nurse is to promote wellness and disease prevention by early identification of health problems that might interfere with the educational process. As provided in the school setting, health services include identification of health needs, necessary therapeutic interventions, first aid, prevention, which includes education, and we're very active in that this year with washing our hands and cough and sneeze etiquette and social distancing, and staying home when you're sick too. Health maintenance and health screening. I'd like to give you a brief snippet of the data we gathered last year. For the time period of July 1st, 2008 through June 30th, 2009, there were 32,416 medications dispensed in your school clinics. There were 22,717 health room visits for illness, first aid, and consultations. There were 2,916 tube feedings, 9,540 glucose monitoring procedures, 2,248 insulin injections, 4,392 consultations with students on carbohydrate counting. Those, thank you to the Champs Cafe, who developed a program that we can plug into and parents can plug into so we can calculate those carbohydrates at home as well as in the school clinic in a very timely manner. We are very grateful for that partnership. And 2,196 clean catheterizations. This is just a brief picture to give you a little overview of what occurs in your school system. Any questions?
Can I?
Ms. Miller.
I just want to say how much we truly appreciate our nurses in our schools. There's no way that the classroom teacher could handle some of these things that they do. And it becomes more and more needed every year. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Ms. Messina.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm always amazed at the statistics that I read when I see this report every year. And I know that the parents and the public don't realize, I mean, most parents, me included, get the phone call when our son has a fever or our daughter has a fever and we go pick up our child. And we don't always think through some of those more complex health issues that other students may have. And so I know I'm really proud to be a part of a district that has nurses in our schools, because so many of them don't. So I really appreciate the partnership that we have with the health department in the reporting and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just thankful that we are able to maintain our school nurses.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Mrs. Seifert.
My comment's very much the same. We've always known that it's a very valuable thing to have our student nurses, but certainly now it really expands our gratefulness for having our school nurses as we look at the potential of an epidemic. And I was somewhere, I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was some sort of a parent-child scenario, and the teacher was talking about a proper coughing and sneezing etiquette, and the adults are all like looking like, what? And the kids are all showing them exactly what to do. And I thought, and really, you all were so proactive with that, because that's been in place for several years. But just starting to make the rounds of adults now. So we are truly blessed to have our school nurses.
Thank you very much. We feel the same way with our board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Buck, and your nursing staff for the care that they give our students every single day. And this has been a very challenging year. You've had to educate students, staff, parents on the whole swine flu thing, and field so many more questions than usual, and have to demonstrate, like Mrs. Seifert was saying, how to sneeze properly, how to wash your hands properly, and just generally tell people how to stay healthy. And we do appreciate everything that your nurses do for us. And thinking about what Mrs. Messina was saying, every year she's flabbergasted by when you give those statistics to us. What would we do without a nurse in every school? How did we do it before? So thank you very much, you and your staff.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail.
Florida School Breakfast Week, Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I think we'll take the two together, or at least consecutively. If Terry Whitaker, who is our Director of Food and Nutrition Services, will come forth with her crew, we're going to talk about Florida School Breakfast Week and National School Lunch Week. Terry.
Thank you, Superintendent Dr. Gaylor, Chairman Mrs. Rendell, school board members, and School Board Attorney Mrs. Young. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to highlight Florida School Breakfast Week and National School Lunch Week. The week of October 12th through the 16th, we will be celebrating 62 years of the National School Lunch Program sponsoring healthy meals for children and staff. And our theme this year is All-Star. We brought the lyrics out because if you have old ears like mine, you cannot understand what they're saying. So I truly love that last line, only shooting stars break the mold, and that makes me think of Dr. Gaylor and the leadership that he inspires for all of us. We plan to celebrate All-Star School Lunch with some extra special menus featuring such fan favorites as soft taco, teriyaki beef rice bowl, and chicken parmesan with spaghetti. We know that 56% of our children, our students, are economically needy. That is, they're based on income and the number of people living in the household. Their families qualify either for free meals or for reduced price meals. We feel a huge responsibility to offer nutritious foods that the students will choose and eat, because we know what a challenge it is for their families to provide high-quality foods at home on evenings and weekends during these difficult economic times. And you can see with what Joyce and Don have up there that we were 46% about 4 years ago, so that's up 10% in a very short time. School lunch tends to be the public's first culprit when obesity trends are studied. If you note on this CDC, or Center for Disease Control's chart, and it's entitled Trends in Child and Adolescent Overweight, less than 5% of children were overweight in the 1960s. We begin to see an increase in overweight children and adolescents in the late 1970s, but then note the dramatic angle at which these trends have followed. For children aged 2 to 5, nearly 15% of them are overweight in 2004, and for older children and adolescents, they're nearly 20% overweight in 2004. And remember, that would be 5 years ago for that data. And that means 1 out of every 5 children was overweight in 2004. So how responsible is school lunch for this unhealthy trend? Our in-county research at 2 schools last January 2009 showed us what the average kindergartner through 5th grader brought to eat from home in a packed lunch. And the cost to the family for that packed lunch was $2.63 to prepare, compared to a Champs Cafe lunch that at that time was $1.90. And it's kind of dark there, but you can see the meal packed on the left. Do you remember in math class you had the mean, median, and mode? Mm-hmm. We went with mode. What was the most fashionable? What did we see the most often? And we did a calculation with our 3 dietitians that were visiting us from Sarasota, and they helped us come up with those that particular typical lunch. That packed lunch had more calories, which could translate into an extra 7.5 pounds in one school year for a child, or 45 extra pounds over 6 years in an elementary school, depending upon their activity level and their growth. Not even 4% of these elementary students packed or purchased a milk. Only 3% brought vegetables. The lunches from home for these elementary students were 35% higher in fat than the school lunch, lower in fiber, and significantly lower in vitamins A and C. The best part is that Champs Cafe meal was 73 cents less expensive, but at the same time provided more nutrition. Now, our goal for the upcoming week of celebration of the National School Lunch Program in mid-October is to help our students recognize the all-star in themselves and help them realize that making healthy food choices enables them to reach their goal of being an all-star in any role that they play in life. Perhaps they're an athlete, they're a student, a big brother, a son or daughter, a musician, etc. We're offering the opportunity for our elementary teachers to help create all-star career constellations by writing their name and their career goal on a star and posting it among the stars of their classmates. We'd like to invite each of you to be an all-star and join us for National School Lunch Week or any week, whatever's convenient for your schedule. And in your envelope there, we have an invitation with the times. Remember, you can now catch lunch at Charlotte High at 10 o'clock, just in case you were hungry. And Craig knows because he's there serving. And then we've provided an elementary with middle school menu on the back just to save some paper so you could see what enticing menus Joyce has prepared for you there. And, of course, if you'd like to come for breakfast, what time do we serve breakfast, Craig? 10 till 7. Okay. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You might recall that last February, L.A. Anger and Lemon Bay High welcomed a Florida State University breakfast research team. We were one of 8 counties selected for this study to better understand the factors that influence whether middle and high school students choose to eat breakfast or not. District leaders Marsha Loudon and Mike Loudon opened their school's cafeteria doors, their classroom doors, their faculty lounge doors, and their office doors to Dr. Aboud and her graduate assistant to observe and survey. I saw that they were presenting their research at a Florida Dietetic Symposium this summer, so I was in the audience when they presented the PowerPoint, and the first picture was a gorgeous photograph of L.A. Anger Middle School looking absolutely clean and immaculate, and they commented on that, and they commented on how welcoming our staff was at L.A. Anger. She then showed pictures of the food that was on display at Lemon Bay High School, Patty's Champs Cafe, and went on and on about the smiling staff, the happy people who were greeting students as they efficiently served breakfast to them before the first bell. Now, Dr. Aboud told the crowd from dietitians across Florida how interested and supportive our administrators and teachers were, and they spoke about the great people and the school breakfast program that Charlotte County operates. However, it became clear to me in listening to the information shared by the students and the faculty that we, the Food and Nutrition Services Department, still had some work to do. We need to do some marketing and promotional work since the teachers said we ought to be offering things like oatmeal. And here we'd been offering oatmeal every day, every school for several years. The teachers also suggested we get rid of the high-sugar, ready-to-eat cereals, not knowing we'd already eliminated several of those in like 2006. And then also, we've been asking our manufacturers to reduce the sugar for years in the bowl packs that we serve at breakfast time at schools. And finally, many have complied. And you can see Joyce has a display there. Reduced sugar Cocoa Puffs, the Cheerios, reduced sugar Trix, and reduced sugar Cinnamon Toast Crunch are popular with our students. And they have definitely less sugar than the cereals from just a few years ago. Then we did an inexpensive but fairly elaborate Your Success Begins with School Breakfast campaign. And we started by taking a photograph at Patty's school one morning of all the foods that we put together at a high school to make a healthy breakfast. And thanks to our partners in transportation, we were able to create a poster for each of our high schools to display to entice the students to come to breakfast. And we customized the sign, there's part of it too, to have the times that that particular school serves breakfast, and also to say, remember, it's free, 30 cents or $1.10, depending on your eligibility. Well, I could tell from listening to our students, as hard as it was to hear last February, that they really thought our food was terrible, that Burger King and McDonald's served a better breakfast than Champs Cafe. So the week before, Florida Breakfast Week, we set our cash registers in what we call lottery mode. And that means it gives a prize out. It's set in a random statistic there. And then about 10% of our lunch customers won a free sample, and they won either our new cinnamon UBR, which stands for Ultimate Breakfast Round, a turkey ham, egg, and cheese bagel sandwich, or some other entree. And they were cut up into pieces so they could share them with their friends if they so desired. You know how those young men are. Ate the whole thing themselves. Well, we have a breakfast bag for you, and inside we have a cinnamon UBR for you to taste test, and also a serving of Heart Healthy Cheerios. The cinnamon UBR is made with oats and wheat flour and offers a student 6 grams of fiber, 4 grams of protein, 0 trans fat, and 15% of their daily iron. And along with this sample of breakfast food, we gave the high school student customers who won a little invitation, and Joyce has one on display there. And it was created by our partners in the district's print shop. So that way you received the sample, and you know how loud it is in the cafeteria. That way you could take that little invitation back to your table and say, well, why did I win? What did I win? And it invited them to come to breakfast. It told them what time we offered, how we were having a contest. How is it? Okay, good report. It smells so good, I don't know how you could resist not eating that. Well, we wanted the children to encourage their friends to come, bring a friend to breakfast, and see which high school had the highest increase in breakfast participation. So we got a trophy, and then we decided that we would watch the participation increase. Well, the week we did the sampling, which was not the week we were counting, but the week we did the sampling, every day they reported they had an increase the next day. So just bringing attention to it, offering them a sample, did work. So when the actual Florida Breakfast Week began last Monday, we had the help of our principals and our TV production teams. They made announcements in that. And then we also listened to the FSU people tell us that creating an expectation in students is very important. If I ask you every morning, are you having breakfast before you come to school, if I'm your homeroom teacher, maybe you would think, oh, she's going to ask that again tomorrow. I better find some breakfast. Oh, Champ's Cafe. And, of course, we're happy if they eat breakfast anywhere, but we know ours is healthy and we can track that for them. So we decided that we would create a little survey, but we needed the help of our classroom teachers. So at the middle and high schools last week, we asked the homeroom teachers to conduct a 5-day survey, and it was entitled, Hey, Did You Eat Breakfast Today? And you can see that it's just a large paper that we've printed on both sides. And each day then it asked them, did you eat breakfast, yes or no? And we counted the names. And there was a little bit of information to share with the children, maybe a brainstorming question. And we asked them things like, what constitutes a healthy breakfast? What stops or prevents you from eating a healthy breakfast? Why is it considered the most important meal? We know that this was going way above and beyond for our teachers. They have a lot to do. But I was asking them to try to make that connection that if the students were more ready to learn, then perhaps they would be more successful in the classroom. So it's just one more ingredient in that recipe for student success, sir. So we also on the back of that listed, that's some research there to share with teachers. The rest of it was online. And then on the back we listed what's for breakfast because, again, I was worried that the teachers really didn't know what we offered. Because usually in the morning they would be very busy getting their classroom ready and dealing with lesson plans and students that had concerns and questions for them. So, of course, as we had hoped, participation increased across the district about 9% during Florida School Breakfast Week, from 3,500 meals to 3,800 students served each morning. Our high school breakfast participation numbers increased at all 4 high schools, anywhere from an average of an extra 5 customers a day to an extra 20 per day. And at this time, I'd like to announce the winner, first place for the highest increase at the high school level, student breakfast participation, 16% during Florida School Breakfast Week here in Charlotte County, and the winner is Lemon Bay High School. We're fortunate to have Patty with us this evening. She was planning to come anyway, so that worked out very well. But she's accepting on behalf of the Manta Ray students and staff, and I know that they put a great effort toward this, encouraging the kids to participate and really promoting it through their Manta Ray TV. Before we conclude tonight, I want to extend a special thanks to my team of assistants. We have Food Service Assistant Martha Heisel with us tonight, Assistant Manager Vicki Tuttle, Managers Patty Berry and Craig Smith, our Purchasing Specialist Penny Moyer, Food Nutrition Services Specialist Joyce Welsh, and our Operations Manager Don Buck. We certainly want to congratulate Lemon Bay and thank you, Dr. Gaylor and school board members, for the support that you give us and for the important role we play at Champs Cafe. We are very proud to contribute to student success. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Whitaker and your staff for providing our students with the good fuel that our students need to be successful and eager to learn every day. So we do thank you, and we know what a hardworking staff you have. We've all worked with them before, and so glad you always come to all of these meetings with us. Yes, Mrs. Messina.
I had a question for you. After Hurricane Charlie, there were a few weeks, several actually, where every student in the district was able to eat a free lunch. I remember that very clearly because my children never ate school lunch until that time. They always packed their lunch. And now, how many years later is it? 5 years later. They've not packed their lunch since, and I have to do the Champs Cafe. Okay. My question for you is, have you been able to track maybe how that affected? Because I wonder if those numbers would be interesting to other districts or to the federal program, that if they were to provide it for a certain period of time, how many might stay with it? And I'm just curious if you had thought of that angle.
I like that. We can look back at that time. And, you know, it's funny. You're like, well, why didn't I do that? Well, gee, we were a little busy with other things.
No, I didn't say, I never said, why didn't you do that?
But you do think, why didn't you think when you had that great statistic and that great bump at that time? But I'll go back and look at those numbers.
Yeah, because it seems like, there might be something you could follow. I don't know. All I know is my kids are still eating the school lunch, and I'm still writing those checks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here this evening. On to new business, the consent agenda. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. I would recommend that we approve the consent agenda as submitted to you this evening.
So moved. Second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have the action agenda. Item A, Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards Legislative Platform. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And, of course, this district is a member of the Greater Florida Consortium, and this legislative program has been, of course, tentatively approved by you and the other districts that are members of the consortium. I thought board members may want to have some comments on a few of these items. They run from funding suggestions to waiver suggestions to hurricane suggestions. There's just about anything and everything you could think of in here. It's a pretty massive document. We normally have 2 or 3 legislative priorities, but the Greater Florida Consortium has many. But I would suggest that if the board would like to make a few comments on these, you'd be welcome to do that before I make a recommendation.
Ms. Messina.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention and remind the board that those items that had originally been proposed to be a part of this platform, that as a consortium we chose to bump to FSBA. If FSBA does not put those items on their platform, then they will come back to the consortium in our December meeting. You know how we meet briefly in December, and we may add them. It might be an amendment to this particular legislative package.
And then we'll get it back to approve or disapprove that?
No, we would be voting at that December meeting to add it.
Oh, okay. Because my concern was, I think we discussed at the workshop a couple weeks ago, was the constitutional amendments that we kicked over to FSBA, and I told you that, I'm not for.
Right.
And I don't know if we need to discuss that in case it does come back and you vote for it, or what to do about that.
Well, we all should end up being at that consortium meeting. I'm guessing that FSBA won't pass it. And don't forget, if any district says no, if any one district says no to any item, it does not go on the platform. Okay. So if anyone said that they wouldn't support something, I would have to ask our representatives say no to that, and it would not end up on the platform.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and Mr. Swift was there also at the meeting. Yes, Mr. Swift.
I just wanted to add that at the director's retreat, the executive committee met, and I am fairly confident that all the issues that were bumped from this to FSBA are being added to their list of things to be considered and developed into the proposed plan. So I don't think there was anything that did not get taken. And in fact, many of the things were already there from last year, and so it helps to streamline this plan a little bit more, which needed.
Board members, anyone else? Ms. Seifert?
I just had one question as I read it over again carefully. Under the Hurricane and Disaster Relief, page 4, it says funding all operational costs associated with shelter operations, which I think really exists if you have that mutual aid agreement. And was that the intent, to bypass those or eliminate those?
You know what, that's not on the actual platform. That's an issue of concern later, isn't it? My computer's a little slow here.
It says priority issues.
Yeah, it's in priority.
It's priority issue, which is not the same as the platform, correct? No, it's one of the top ones. You know what? I don't remember that conversation. Do you, Lee?
It's come up a couple of times before. This is left over from last year. There were some situations where some of the cleanup costs after the fact were not covered for some districts. Some of the setup costs were not covered. Most of the operational specific time that the facility was in use as a shelter were taken care of. But I think they're just trying to get some of this codified a little bit clearer so that a district will not lose money by having its facilities used as shelters.
Okay, and then what was the intent of including shelters in concurrency requirements?
Lee, I honestly wasn't there at that point. I don't remember that at all.
That was not discussed this year. That's left over from last year, and I don't remember. I
mean, I don't think either one are necessarily bad. It's just that
no, I think if I'm remembering a piece of this, what they were talking about was in the concurrency. If schools were going to be used as shelters, it should be considered part of the concurrency issues that need to be talked about, and the funding to make them shelters should be part of what they consider those foundation funds. What's the word I'm trying to look for? The funds that come to us through the concurrency agreements. You know, where you have to make sure that
mitigation.
Thank you. Yeah, the mitigation type dollars. If a school is going to be used as a shelter, then those dollars need to be recognized as being necessary, as opposed to it being just on the school district to have the extra costs themselves.
And encourage that to be.
I think she hit that pretty close. We had talked about that for several years being a concern after the big hurricane rush of 2004, 2005, because there was some talk about shelters being built into all new school buildings automatically, and that there was no funding mechanism for it at that time. So I'm wondering if this is left over from
That's
that.
what I think
it is.
To say that yes, if you're going to require us to build shelters into every school, then there should be some funding mechanism, maybe through concurrency and mitigation is a way to look at that.
Okay.
That's my memory.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Dr. Gaylor, recommended action.
So I'd recommend approval of the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards legislative platform.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded that we approve the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards legislative platform. Is there any board discussion? Thank you, Mrs. Messina and Mr. Swift, for your work on this. I know it's an all-day meeting that you have to attend, a good 7 or 8 hours, and I know you have gone through every word of this document and have had our interest in mind, so thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Item B, bond reimbursement resolution. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. This is the first step in the possibility of us actually being able to obtain ARRA, stimulus funds, for school construction purposes. And, of course, as you know, we have some school construction needs that continue to exist. So this resolution will allow us to reimburse ourselves from qualified tax obligations, including qualified school construction bonds, should we apply for and receive those bonds. So we will need to discuss the precise construction projects that we would need to apply for at an upcoming workshop. But this is simply a resolution to say we would like to discuss that matter so that we can go forward with the application.
So moved.
Second.
I didn't know you gave a recommendation. I didn't remember. Okay.
I do recommend that we approve this item, the bond reimbursement resolution.
So moved.
Second again.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the resolution for bond reimbursement. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Item C, letter of intent, Florida's school health insurance pool. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Our bargaining teams for insurance, our insurance committee, presented to the school board at a workshop last week regarding our agreement to go with FSHIP, which is the Florida School Health Insurance Pool, for the purpose of providing health insurance to our employees. And at that workshop, the board gave its nod to go ahead with this letter of intent pending official documents that we would need to approve at a subsequent board meeting, more than likely the board meeting in October on the 27th. What this letter does is serves as official notice of intent that we intend to approve the appropriate trust documents for FSHIP, and it will entail utilizing the FSBIT SHIP Trust Administrator, the Willis Broker Consultant, the UMR United Healthcare third-party administrator and their network, ING Reinsurance, which is stop-loss coverage, and of course the clinic that we discussed, which would actually be run by HealthStat. So this is our letter to FSBA and FSBIT and FSHIP as they're creating that board to say that we intend to go with them for our health insurance plan, and that we're going to be in partnership, as you know from the workshop, with other counties as they come into this consortium. Right now it's us and Citrus County. So I'd recommend approval of this letter of intent as submitted.
And before we make a motion, please, in a second, Ms. Smith, is there any member of the public wishing to speak on this?
Yes, ma'am. John Klenovic.
Mr. Klenovic?
Madam Chairman, school board members, Dr. Gaylor, for the record, my name is John Klenovic. I currently serve as president of Charlotte Teachers. I rise tonight to speak on behalf of the CFEA representatives on the Employee Benefits Committee. In my role as a president of our Teachers Association for the last 9 years, we have talked at length statewide about possible ways to increase insurance pools, in possible ways to involve more people in hopes of lowering costs and increasing service. The step that we sincerely hope that you take is a big step. It's a leap forward. We truly believe that this concept, in which we buy in completely, the group with all employee groups did reach consensus on this issue, that we feel it's a definite direction that will reward us in the future, that it's the first step of many that are about to come, and we wholeheartedly support this action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klenovic. Ms. Smith, is there anyone else wishing to address the board?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. We've had superintendent's recommendation. Need a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the School Board of Charlotte County's entry to the Florida Schools Health Insurance Pool. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Swift.
A couple of things. Pick up on something Mr. Klenovic said. For a number of years, people around the state have been looking at different ways to try to lessen the cost of health insurance. There was even a bill last year that would have attempted to extend eligibility in the state insurance, health insurance program to school districts, county governments. It never got anywhere for whatever reason, I don't know. And secondly, I had a question yesterday by a teacher who lives in Lee County and was very concerned about this potential action because she advised that the Lee Memorial Health System did not take United Healthcare, and was very concerned because it being the regional trauma center, as well as a number of our employees live in Lee County, and that would be their hospital of choice. I called FSBA today and spoke to Mark McKinney, the executive director of the insurance trust, and he advised me that as of August 1st, the Lee Memorial Health System has signed a contract with United, and now the only hospital in the state of Florida that does not have a contract with United is the hospital in Key West, for some strange reason. So
good to know.
That would be, John, if you could let your membership know that, I think it would alleviate some concerns that people had about United's participation. So, thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Messina.
I just wanted to recognize the hours and hours and hours of work that it took this committee and John and Bobby, your representatives, and Chuck and Doug and staff, and just this is a huge and monumental effort, and we know that the time is short, and so we just sincerely appreciate the work that went into this in trying to maintain high levels of coverage for employees, quality care at a reasonable price, and that's what every employer is trying to do. So we really, really appreciate the efforts here.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. It is a pretty thankless job, and I know they do put in tens and tens of hours, so thank you. Dr. Gaylor, you had something to say?
Just one more thing to add to this. It is a huge issue of course, it's a national issue, but for us, we've been faced with the prospect recently of a 26% increase on our current health plan, or if we went with a clinic, about a 19 or 20% increase. A 26% increase, if the board were to fund that fully, is over $3.5 million. $3.5 million pretty much takes care of your quarter mil. Mm-hmm. So if we were to have to fund that, then it would pretty much force me to take some actions that I don't want to take with respect to beginning to look at layoffs even here during the middle of the year, because it'd put us down below a 5% fund balance when we know that we're going to have some things that come up for us over the course of the next year that we're going to have to fund. So the opportunity that we're taking to look at health insurance in a different way, to look at it still being high quality yet lower cost, is absolutely the right thing and the only thing we can do at this point. And I think it's going to benefit us in the long run as we move toward at a high level wellness portion of this program, as well as implementing the clinic, which should be a significant reduction in savings while providing high quality service. So it's not just because we want to change, it's because we're required to really take a look at these sorts of things. And this is the best way that we have found through our insurance committee to save money and yet maintain a high quality health insurance system. So my recommendation stands.
Thank you. The motion is to approve the letter of intent to enter the Florida School Health Insurance Pool. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have the paperwork reduction plan. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not sure this really reduces paperwork, and we have put before you the ways that this school district has reduced paperwork over the past several years, but also a statement at the end that indicates that even though this law is in effect, the fact of the matter is, just simply with the differentiated accountability as one example of legislation that we were forced to comply with this year, the monumental stack of paperwork that goes with that runs counter to this very act. We asked Senator Dietert, and she complied last year to get this useless piece of legislation out of the law. For some reason it didn't pass. We're going to ask her again this year, and she will put that again in a bill. But it just makes no sense when we say one thing in the statutes and then we provide legislation to do exactly another. Nonetheless, we're complying with the Paperwork Reduction Act as we have been required to do by the legislature, and I would recommend approval of this item as submitted to you this evening.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the paperwork reduction plan for 09 and 2010. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. And really what's needed is not a paperwork reduction, because all that really does is reduce the paperwork, which has now been put on the computer instead. And what we need is a requirement reduction plan from the DOE, not the paperwork, you know.
A mandate
substitute the
reduction
computer
plan.
for the paperwork. So, item E, 404 hazard mitigation. P, B, S, and J. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This post-Buckley, Shoe, and Jernigan request is for task order number 5 to be extended through February 28th to comply with paperwork requirements. So I recommend approval of this item submitted to you this evening.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the extension to PB, S, and J contract. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Item F, Hurricane Charlie Recovery Amendment to contract with Reynolds, Smith, and Hills for East Elementary School. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. This is the final guaranteed maximum price related amendment to the contract with RS&H. And as you know, what we normally do with a building construction project is estimate the cost up front. We then calculate the initial fee for architects and engineers and their services, and then when the final GMP is solidified, then we adjust that as necessary. And it's exactly what this is this evening. So I'd recommend that we approve this contract amendment with Reynolds Smith and Hills for the additional professional services relating to East Elementary School's rebuilding.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the contract amendment with Reynolds, Smith, and Hills. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Item G, 5-year work plan. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And I'm going to call our Assistant Superintendent for District Support Services, Jerry Olivo, to the podium. We have had this 5-year work plan on our workshop agenda in August, and I think Jerry just wants to go over the highlights with you. It's essentially the same plan that we went over with minor differences in the funding. Jerry.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Madam Chairman, school board members. The 5-year work plan, as you know, is an annual requirement through the Department of Education. We start very early in the the calendar year, working with our leadership teams throughout the district, working very closely with Mr. Brasser and Mr. Greiner, and finally with the staff in the Maintenance and Operations Department to put together the 5-year capital plan. This year was no exception. As in every year, there are some challenges. We are required to have a financially feasible and balanced plan throughout the 5 years, and we've accomplished that this year again. And as we reviewed it during the workshop, there's been some minimal changes as the dollars ferret themselves out with Mr. Brasser's help. And so with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Board members. Dr. Gaylor, recommended action.
Yes, ma'am. I'd recommend the approval of the 2009-2010 5-year work plan as submitted to you this evening.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the 5-year work plan. Is there any board discussion? Ms. Messina.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to sincerely thank you for getting some money in there for Lemon Bay. I was talking with Dr. Gaylor yesterday in my pre-agenda meeting, and as the school board member who represents that district, I am getting blasted lately with people, when are you building Lemon Bay? I don't know where they think we're going to get money. to do this, but they've really started a little campaign out there, and we're both getting hits. So thank you for giving me something to show them and some monies to show them that something is going to happen out there. You have no idea. Thanks.
And thank you for your work on this, Mr. Olivo. I wish there was some more capital funding to put in your plan to make it a little beefier, but maybe with some bond work that we're hearing about, that might just happen. So thank you very much. At this point, we take a vote. All those in favor of approving the 5-year work plan, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes unanimously. Item H, Master and Service Plan. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We're required every year to update our Master and Service Plan. So the 2009-2010 Master and Service Plan only includes 2 new components. One, PITR, plugged into reading, and problem-solving response to intervention, often known as RTI. Chuck is not able to be here tonight, but this is exactly what he was going to present to you this evening. You have been through these Master and Service Plans many times. Often we will have many, many more components to add to the plan. Tonight it's 2 that you're familiar with. I would recommend approval of these additions to the Master and Service Plan submitted to you this evening.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded that we approve the Master and Service Plan. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Last item, personnel action and out-of-field teacher report. Dr. Gaylor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And we do have about 61, I believe, out-of-field teachers out of about 1,000. So we are in good shape with our out-of-field teachers. Many of those are taking some courses for ESOL, endorsement in ESOL. I'd recommend approval of the personnel action and out-of-field teacher report as submitted to you tonight.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded that we approve the personnel action and out-of-field teacher report. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Next we have citizen comment. Ms. Smith, is there anyone wishing to address the board? Thank you. Next we have attorney comment. Ms. Young.
Just real quick, just to let you know that Tom Young is doing quite well, and thanks you for your kind words and thoughts.
Thank you. Board member comment. Mr. Swift.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Next week, I'm going to be participating in a meeting as the FSBA representative with members of the Willis Services Group on the health insurance plan. I'm meeting Dr. Blanton in Tampa. Oddly, Willis's office is in the building that's next door and adjoins the Hyatt. So I'll be there, and then I'll be back in Tampa the next day. Joy Boyne, the president of FSBA, created an ad hoc committee on education funding. That committee is going to be meeting next Thursday all day in Tampa, and I will be attending that meeting as well. The meeting is being chaired by W.C. Gentry, a member of the Duval County School Board and a former member of the state legislature. We're just going to talk about potential sources of funding for education. Are there any things that philosophically we don't want to be tied to, and strategies for creating a dedicated source of funding for education to take some of the uncertainty out of the funding mechanisms for each year. That is all I have tonight, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Seifert.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I certainly wanted to give my congratulations to really everyone in the district, because everybody has a part at some point in time. These children were taught very well, especially those that started in kindergarten with us. But our students who took the AP exams, here we are, Charlotte County, #1 in the state again. And the other thing that is wonderful when we talk about our AP scores, many times people in the community will say, well, you know, I know your kids are doing well in Florida, but how do they compare to the children in Massachusetts or the children in New York? Well, here is a perfect example to share with them, because those students are taking the exact same tests and our students are doing so well, and very good that we had an increasing number of students taking those AP exams. So hooray for Charlotte County, #1 in the state once again. Very good. I wanted to make mention of our Sheriff's Department, and I thought it would be nice if we wrote them a little note, because I've noticed driving around town that they are very often at our crossing sites where the traffic is slowed. There'll be a car there watching to make sure that people are slowing, and I appreciate that, and I think that's nice of them to schedule that time for the deputy's car and deputy to be there. And finally, once again, the arts that we know is so important in Charlotte County. Listening to the group here tonight was wonderful, and I had the thrill of going to see Peter versus the Wolf today. And Peter and the Wolf has always been wonderful that our symphony has put on for our 4th grade students, but this was fabulous. It was just incredible, and it held the interest of the students every minute, because they never knew when a wolf was going to jump up, or there were hunters that came down from the back with guns shooting little Nerf things, and it was just wonderful. And it was the drama students at Charlotte High School that did the acting part of it in concert with the symphony, and there was so much instruction. I learned something else about an instrument, and so it was fabulous, and I am so grateful that we're still able to have our Showbiz Kids programs, and I know our students benefit, and the whole child benefits with what we are able to do with the arts, and it was a wonderful thing. And then the symphony also having the reception for our music teachers was very, very nice, and a nice event for them. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Messina.
Mr. Swift keeps raising his hand. I don't know.
Just wanted to add one little thing, piggyback on something Mrs. Seifert said. I understand Maestro Wada wants to take the production of Peter versus the Wolf on the road to some surrounding districts, and was asking if he could steal our students for 2 or 3 days, I think, to do that. And I think he was told that they would look at it, but it'd have to be after FCAT, since I think all the kids that were in that production were 10th graders. So, but I heard some very good reports about it as well. So I just want to throw that in.
Did I lose my time by giving it to him? I just have 2 quick things. One is I really need to go on record thanking Melissa Russell for the Paperwork Reduction Act efforts. She's been doing it every year that I think it's even been in place. What is that, 5-6 years now or something? So at least she's, keeping up, working hard. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, I'm so glad Ms. Gravlin is still here, because I wanted to talk about the Pre-K Policy Council that I represent us on, and let you guys know, in case you didn't, that this is the year where the site visit will be occurring, and you know how they do the interviews and things like that. But also, I wanted to invite you out on behalf of Ms. Gravlin, and I'm certain that she would extend this invitation if she had the opportunity at the microphone, to let you know that they have created a new imagination station out there where the students are coming in, and their resource teachers have taken a classroom and really turned it into kind of a hands-on place. One of the little areas is a marketplace, and there's money, and where the kids can pretend like they're buying stuff. And another place I was really shocked, there was kind of a rocky horse and some real hay. I mean, real hay that the kids can touch, that not kids that age are really going to have an opportunity to get around real hay all the time. And it was just a real exciting place in there with a lot of kids and lots of activity, little pre-K kids. So if there's a day when you need a smile on your face, just go to Baker's Imagination Station.
Okay. Mrs. Miller.
Yes, on September 17th, I attended the dedication of the Bailey Brothers plaque that took place at the Charlotte County Airport. And the Bailey brothers were 7 brothers from Punta Gorda who served our country during World War II and the Korean War in various branches, in fact, every branch of the military. And the new terminal is named after the brothers, and you really need to go out there and see that plaque. It's quite amazing. It's huge. It's very nice, quite an honor. On September 19th, I attended the Kids' Day American Weekend at Sally Jones Elementary, and that was exciting. There were so many in attendance, and also they had so many marvelous sponsors. They had a card, and someone had a chance to win a free Nintendo Wii 2, and you had to go around to the different booths, and such as dental. They checked your teeth. They checked your eyes. And you would get this stamped. They had the fire departments there, police departments. They were handing out bicycle helmets, and just so many more. And so this was a nice opportunity for our children. And the last, I want to tell Pam, thank you so much for putting this on the front page right at the top. Charlotte students ranked #1. And I was amazed how many people noticed it and said, wow, that's really something. And wherever I went. So by being there as the headline, people do notice our school system. Otherwise, the back page, it's there. But this was great. And I thank you for, seeing that it got up there, you and the son. And that's it.
Thank you. I would like to thank Connie Cantor for opening her house for Mr. Wada, who is the new symphony conductor. She had a nice reception for him and the music teachers, so we could all meet him. And then like Mrs. Seifert was talking about, today was the Peter versus the Wolf play, and I know at Connie Cantor's house he told us all, you make sure you come on Tuesday. It's something that you won't, you've never seen before. You've got to see it. So I was there this morning also. It was excellent. It really was. It's the best show that I've seen from Showbiz Kids, hands down. It was really excellent. And I am pleased and proud that we can still provide that kind of education for our students. And it really was an education, too. I did learn a lot. They went through all the different instruments and what they did in a fun way. And even got some vocabulary in there. One word they stressed over and over again was metaphorically speaking. So the kids learned that, too. So it was a very, very nice morning for the students and for the adults who went there. So that's it for me. Dr. Gaylor, superintendent's comment.
Thank you for taking a look at the article that Jerry Olivo wrote for the FSBA newsletter. I appreciate that very much. I've incorporated a couple of things into that. I want to share it with Jerry, and then we'll send it off to Wayne Bland. So really appreciate that. And just one other note, Senator Dietert, who we mentioned a few minutes ago, will come to our October 27th school board meeting to receive recognition from us on her work on behalf of education in the Senate last year. So we'll expect her next board meeting. That's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. You've got a lot of business completed in 63 minutes. Really amazing. Thank you for being here this evening. This meeting is adjourned.